Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and welcome to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Damian Prosalendis. Hey, Damian, how are you?
I'm great, Cesar. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to getting to know you more and sharing your story with our audience. Before we get started, let me give the audience a little bit of your background. So Damian is a 20-year-old self-made millionaire. He is the producer of the new Age Millionaires Show, a web TV series about the lavish lifestyle of the young and successful. Grant Cardone told him, "You can be the next Jeff Bezos." And Tai Lopez told him, "You are in the top 99.99%. He was running 3 businesses at 21 and a group of 9 at 24. He's best known for creating SPXMAC, the world's largest consulting firm for e-commerce brands with over 10,000 clients in 116 different countries. Wow, that's amazing. And definitely I want to tap into that and want to learn more about that success. Before we get there, though, I want to know about your background. What is your background? Where are you originally from? And what was your upbringing?
So I'm originally from Greece. I grew up in Greece. I partly live there still, but I'm moving between Greece, United States, and Dubai. So I grew up in Greece in a little island called Corfu, which is a popular tourist destination there. Very humble upbringings. My parents didn't have much money. About a few years after I was born, they scraped by and managed to take us up to maybe middle class when I was 10 or 12 years old. And that was like the peak of their financial ability. And from there came the financial crisis of 2008. And then it kept getting worse and worse. My father became unemployed. My mother basically was a civil servant and wasn't making much money. And I had to go through a difficult period of 5 or 6 years where we were very poor and we struggled to get by when I was in junior high school, and then when I got access to study in the university. And that was kind of what set me up for success later and ignited that fire that motivated me when I was in university to do something with my life. Because if I were comfortable like I was when I was growing up at the age of 10 or 15, let's say, if I were still that comfortable later on, I would not have any motive to do anything with my life, which is a pattern I've observed with many people of my age who have not faced any kind of adversity in their lives, and therefore they do not find the reason to do anything with their lives now that they are young. They believe that they're young and they have all the time in the world to do it later, so they don't push for it right now.
Yeah, and one thing that you mentioned, and I want to tap into that, is that we have the perception that, especially when we're younger, right, that we have all the time in our lives. And in reality, right. I heard this once, and in a different content, and I said the minute you were born, you started dying, right? I mean, when you see it from that perspective, the minute you were born, you started dying. So you have to create something for yourself, and that's the biggest commodity that we cannot stopped. There's no way you can stop time. Time is going to go on, and if you do not do anything about it, before you know it, you're going to be 40, 50, 60, and you're like, man, what happened to all this time? So for you decided to take control of that time and use it wisely.
Right. But it was not like I decided 100%. I was forced to take control of it. So when I was in university, and just an explanation, because universities in Greece are not like universities in America. They are all free, but you have to go through a difficult testing process in order to get in. So basically, at the last year of high school, you have to take extracurricular private classes in order to prepare yourself for something called the Pan-Hellenic exams. And then if you score high grades on those exams, then based on those grades, you get access to the relevant school. So, and that's a very taxing economically, it's a very taxing process for Greek families, because you have to spend a lot of money during the whole high school, which is something I don't believe it's done in America. And basically you get into a small debt of $10,000 to $20,000 during that process in order to get the student to study in the university later, which is free. Although technically it isn't, because you have spent all that money. Anyway, so then you get in the university, and then you have 5 years of free studies. Of course, you have to pay for your personal expenses like housing, your food, and all those other things. But basically the main course of the study is free. So in my case, I got that for free as a benefit from my country. But the problem was that my parents had such a small disposable income that I couldn't afford to keep studying at the university. So when my mother was only making 800 euros a month, and I was living in a different city from them, and they also had my brother, who was back then in high school, and he had to go through the same process because he's 4 years younger than me. They had to pay for his classes as well, and then they had their own expenses, and then they could barely give me 200 euros a month, a small allowance, in order to pay for basic expenses like food and electricity and other stuff. So I was living in an unfurnished apartment that had mold on the walls. I didn't have furniture. One day I had to pick a mattress up from the trash and carry it on my back 2 kilometers back home, take it up on the 7th floor, where was my apartment, and then clean it, sanitize it, and then sleep on it. Because before that, I was sleeping on the hardwood floor. And all those circumstances were what forced me to take advantage of my youth and make something of my life from an early age. And I believe, well, if it wasn't for that, I don't know what would have happened. Because like I said, I've seen a lot of people fall in the trap of comfort, and myself even included. After I made my first million at age 20, I mean, I didn't have the same drive. It wasn't the same anymore, because I wasn't anymore struggling to get by. I had money, I could travel the world, I could live a pretty good life. So I also fall into the trap of, let's relax a little bit, let's take it a little bit slower, let's live my life, travel, have some fun, So, yeah. But without that, it was that adversity that forced me to take advantage of the most precious resource we have, our time.
Yeah, no, and I guess one thing that I'm interested to know is, even growing up poor, not having anything, and just being part of that society, like, obviously you went through it and you felt it. Was there anything else that you, because you pretty much had the choice of either become somebody or stay in that current situation, that current circumstances, that society. And a lot of times I would say that many people, unfortunately, I think we all have the potential to become someone, right? And the actions and the things that we do can determine whether or not we become somebody. So at any given point, did you say, you know what, this is my life, I have to accept this for what it is, I'm gonna be poor or middle class or whatever the case may be, and then just stay with that? Because I'm sure that's something that many people might struggle with. So how do you, like, besides living it, how do you say, you know what, no, I'm not going to accept this kind of living, and I'm going to do something about it for you specifically at the age of 20, like an early age, for you to be able to say that led to you becoming a millionaire at 20. How do you deal with that?
That's a great question, man. So I had accepted it for the first 1.5 years that I was studying in the university. It was my reality, and I hadn't thought that there was any other way. I believed that I would have to go through that process for 5 years, get my degree, and then maybe have a chance at a better future. And because nobody told me there is another way, I didn't know it existed. I wasn't aware of it. So if I'm not aware of what the possibilities are, how can I take advantage of them? And I just settled for what they gave me, and I had no other options. I did odd jobs to get by, distributed flyers on the street for €1 per hour, and never got paid. In the summers, I worked at Greek taverns at my hometown for €3 per hour, up until 4 a.m. at night. And basically, that was my life for pretty much 2 years. I had to eat on university food stamps because I couldn't afford to buy my own food, except from basic breakfast like milk and cereal. So I was comfortable in my misery. And because I didn't know of any other way, I had to accept it.
Yeah, and talk about two things, and I want to get your input on that. To be aware of the possibilities, right? Although we can see a lot of stories, we can see a lot of people that have come from nothing to making a lot, such as your case. If I'm the average person, right? How do I get access to being to that knowledge, or get access to knowing that there are other possibilities than just accepting my current life? Like, is there any tips or ideas that you can give us in terms of how we can reach those possibilities?
I believe that the only way to do that is that you have to have somebody that opens your mind. And that's definitely not going to be school. It's not going to be your teachers. It's probably not going to be your friends, because your friends are going to be of the same caliber as you are at your current point of development. So if you're a loser, your friends are most likely going to be losers as well, because you gravitate towards people who have similar beliefs and similar life philosophies. So if it's not your teachers or your friends, it could be your parents, but in most cases, it's not going to be that either, because if it were your parents, you would already be seeing signs of success before you turn 18, if they guided you properly. So if it's none of them, it has to be somebody else. It has to be a mentor, somebody you read about, somebody you saw on TV, somebody who inspired you, perhaps somebody you knew of when you were a child who was destined for the same life as you were, and then you finally discovered suddenly that his life took a different trajectory. So it's going to be someone else. Yeah. Humans learn by osmosis, so somebody has to influence you towards that direction. For example, for me, it wasn't a person I knew of. I randomly stumbled upon a website on the internet written by an American guy called Victor Pride. And he was basically saying that he moved from America to Thailand, and he was living the digital nomad lifestyle, and he was making $10,000 a month from his website, writing articles and selling ebooks. And I was reading that at age 19 while I was working for €3 per hour at taverns.
Yeah.
Working myself out. I would lose 5 kilos a week from work during the summer. So I was like, what the hell am I doing? I mean, that guy is just sitting on his computer, typing things on his website, and he's getting paid that money. Even if I get my degree, I'm not going to make that much money until I'm 40 or 50 maybe. Yeah. So what is he doing? And of course, the idea that it could be a lie, he could be a fraudster, it could be a scam, obviously ran through my mind, but it was very short-lived. And as I started reading more and more and more, I discovered that this is actually possible, and it's not just him, but many people all around the world were living a similar lifestyle.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing that again, when we think about mentors, it doesn't necessarily have to be, a physical person. Like, again, like you mentioned, it could be you're reading some books, you're listening to a podcast, you're listening to people that have been there, that have gone through that, and they're sharing their stories and they're sharing their ideas. And a lot of times, although there's the paid mentorship, because you can definitely pay for mentors to help you with that, there's also the non-paid mentors. It's still going to be an investment, which is the time and the investment of wanting to learn and wanting to attract all of that. And then beyond that is also taking the action, right? And doing something about the things you're learning. And so before I continue with that, though, I want to go back to what you talked about earlier. And you said you were comfortable in your misery, right? And I think that perhaps many people tend to be comfortable with being poor, tend to be comfortable with being whatever the case may be, that they're so afraid, they have the fear of being uncomfortable on something that potentially could be better for them, right? And so I know for me, I'm originally from Mexico City. So when I came to the States, obviously a total different type of lifestyle. I grew up being poor, and I was comfortable being poor. And at one point I wanted to go back to Mexico and live that life of poverty, because I was so uncomfortable being in this country that I didn't know how to speak, read, or write English. I had no friends. And so I guess my question to that is, how do you fight that? How do you fight that fear of the uncomfortableness, right? Because with every uncomfortable moment, there's something great that's going to come out, except that fear of that is what's stopping many people from moving forward.
I don't think there is a hack or a simple mindset that's going to allow you to fight that natural human response, which is to take the path of least resistance in every situation. You just have, I believe it's like a muscle that you have to train to make difficult decisions. And when you do it over and over again, even if it's just little things in the beginning, like wanting to eat an ice cream and choosing not to, when you do those things over and over again, I don't know if there is actually a muscle like that in your brain. There could be, but you actually train yourself to not take the path of least resistance and actually delay that gratification and do what's harder. And that's the only way I've found that you can stop yourself from getting comfortable in any situation and push yourself to go after more. And it's always the simple things. And sometimes it's things that you should force yourself to do, even if you don't feel like. For example, every day I have to train. Even if I don't want to train, even if I'm in a bad mood, I have to train, because it's the only thing I have control over is my mindset, my physicality, and the decisions I make on an everyday basis. So I have to train. I have to take a cold shower after training. I have to read for an hour every morning. I have to stop myself from eating that ice cream when I should not. I have to stop myself from eating that pizza when it's late at night and I'm tired and after hours of work, I want to just chill and watch a movie and eat something that's bad for me. And I'm not saying I never do it, or you have to be a robot that just makes completely emotionless, rational decisions. But 99% of the time, you should make that conscious effort to resist the path of least resistance. And if you manage to do it with the little things, then it becomes easier to do it with things that are bigger and more important.
Yeah, no, I love that. And definitely that's something that, excuse me, something that it's a good practice to put in place, right? Now, in terms of, I think Gary Vee talks about, the sacrifice that he made at an early age to become who he is now. What are some of the sacrifices you've done in your own life?
Mm-hmm. So when I was 19 and I started my first business, I had to drop out of university in order to find the time to do that, and not only find the time, but also burn my ship and not have any other option but make my business succeed. But I wouldn't classify that as a sacrifice, but I would say that was a good decision, a good trade-off to forego that possibility of a safe job 5 years down the road in order to live a better life for the rest of my life. But the sacrifice was after I dropped out of university and started my business, I did not do the things that all my peers were doing at the time. So imagine you're 20 years old, you're in a new city, you live alone, you want to have fun, you want to party, you want to live the college life. And I didn't do that. So I had to stay in, work on my business, very disciplined, force myself to wake up at 8 a.m. in the morning as if I was going to school, even though I weren't and I could wake up at any time. I had to wake up at the same time as everybody else, because otherwise how I would get myself out of that hole that I was in. So for approximately 580 days, I think I had a calendar a few years ago and I was crossing the days on my calendar. I had read in the book about something called the chain habit method. Basically, you draw on a calendar a chain and you must not break the chain at any given point. And I had that chain going for about 2 years. And basically during those 2 years, I did not go out once. I did not go to a club. I did not go to a party. I did not even go for a coffee or for a walk outside. I lived like a robot. I would wake up in the morning, read, work on my business, eat, train, sleep, repeat for almost 2 years. So that was, I believe, the biggest sacrifice that I made in the past. I have since changed my outlook on sacrifice a little bit, and if I could go back in time, I would do things a little bit different, because I believe that was too extreme. But also the reason it was too extreme was why it produced extreme results.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time that I made that decision, it was the best decision I could make with the information I had in my hands back then. So I don't regret it.
Yep.
But I would do it a little bit different if I were at the same situation right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And part of that, I think you touched on that. Tony Robbins talks about this, and he's creating rituals or creating habits, and he also talks about burning your boats, right? And when you get yourself in that mode of burning your boats, and when you get yourself in creating habits, right? You can definitely see results, and you are a proven person that did that from that aspect. Now, even going back to that and looking at the habits that you did, the one thing that comes to mind is, besides growing up in poverty, what else were you doing to really get your mind to working and putting in that positive state of mind? Because that takes a lot of mind power, right? To be, I guess, mentally prepared to do something such as that. And I think that's where a lot of people fall off, because you have these little voices talking to you, a lot of things going through your head, so many different thoughts that are going through your head that are talking you out of doing something. And so how do you deal with that? Because again, at an early age, at 20, 19, 20, 21, all I want to do is party, go out with girls, go out and have a good time. I'm like, that's what normally, 99% of the people do, right? So how do you get yourself out of that on a mental aspect?
So there are a lot of things in life that you don't have control over. The circumstances you grow up in, politics, weather, things that happen in the world, the pandemic, other people's opinions. But the only one thing that you have control of in your life is your own mind. And all those little voices of doubt and uncertainty, if they are your own, you can find the willpower to squash them and shut them down and replace them with different thoughts. But if you have constant negative, constant negative input from other sources, from the media, from your family, from your friends, from your school, from your surroundings, and it's too much pressure and you cannot handle it. So what I did also, apart from not going out anymore, like all my friends did, was to remove all ties I had with my old friends. So basically, I lived like a monk for almost 2 years. It was only me and my girlfriend, and besides her and the people at my gym, I would not really converse with a lot of people. I would not meet my old friends because I didn't want their beliefs to infect my own mind and become an obstacle between me and my goal.
Wow. That's amazing. And I love that, that the one thing you have is that you can control is your mind. And that's definitely so powerful, right? And sometimes we underestimate the power of the mind. We focus so much on the outside or our physical appearance or things like that. We're really, I think a lot of the answers are in our mind, right? And how we can go about making those changes that we have to make those changes in our life. So let's talk about the businesses that you've created and the things that you're doing right now. So give me more about that.
So my first business I started when I was 17 was called SPXMAC, which is a weird name because I had no idea about how to run a business back then. So I signed up on Fiverr.com to sell my services and I just picked a random username. I didn't think about branding. I didn't think about creating an image for my company. And basically I had a really weird, stupid name. But despite that, it went very well. And I grew SPXMAC to the biggest company in the world that does copywriting for Amazon sellers. We had over 10,000 clients in 116 countries. We went with my team to Las Vegas at the Amazing Selling Machine Conference, which is basically the biggest conference in the world for Amazon sellers. And they invited me to speak on stage in front of 5,000 people. It was my first speech. I had never spoken in front of a crowd, let alone a crowd that big. And it was all because of that company and because it was a huge success. So what we did was basically, okay, so in the beginning, I wasn't thinking of creating a company or even doing anything that big. All I wanted was to make some money so I could afford to live without being a burden to my parents and basically make some money so that I don't need to resume my studies at the university. So my goal was to make only $1,000, $2,000 a month, and I was fine with that at the moment. But then, as I started opening my mind up to more possibilities, and I started seeing what other people were doing with their digital businesses, then my worldview expanded, and I set different goals. Then I went from $2,000 a month to $5,000, then to $10,000, and then beyond that. And it all started from me selling my services on Fiverr.com, which is basically, Fiverr, right?
Yeah.
The place where you go for $5 services.
Yeah.
Which is not really true. Because, it is partly true. Although it has that reputation, most people don't know that you can actually charge a lot more through Fiverr. And for example, my average order value was around $85. And we had smaller orders in the range of $5 to $10, but we also had upsells that could take an order up to $300 per client. And then when you had repeat business and recurring income, Fiverr starts giving you better rankings in their algorithm. You get reviews, you rank higher, you have the social proof, you have clients referring you to their own friends, and basically then snowballs from there. So only on Fiverr, we reached the point where we were doing $60,000 in revenue, from which 80% of it was profit. And then we took that Fiverr operation and we scaled it outside of Fiverr. When the social media marketing agency model became popular, I took that idea and adapted it on my Fiverr business. So I used Fiverr to pre-qualify clients. and I would see which of my customers had, I would screen my customers for affluency. I want to know who of them had a business that was doing more than $1 million a year in revenue. And I would do that by getting access to their Amazon dashboards, by offering to upload their Amazon listings for them. So basically, we would do copywriting. We would write their Amazon listings, their copy, and then I would be like, all right, $50 more to set it all up for you. And when I would go to the dashboard, the first thing that Amazon shows you when you log in is your earnings. So from there, I would know which of my clients were the most successful, and then I would approach them a little bit sneakily outside of Fiverr, because Fiverr doesn't like taking their business outside of their website. And I would offer them to get on a call with me, and then sell them on a higher level package that involved listing, ranking them high on Amazon, product research, branding, website building, and other things. And those services all together as a package could go at anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month. So that scaled the business all the way up to $100,000 a month. And it was a service business. And I love the service business model because you have extremely high profitability. You don't have a lot of overhead. Your only cost is software and employees, especially if you're digital. You don't have an office. You don't need many things. So most of it is money in your pocket, which is great.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And is that what you're doing also right now? That's the same practice you're doing right now, as you started, or you have a different company going on right now?
I exited that business in 2018 because I had a dream to get into martial arts from when I was 17. But back then I couldn't do it. I didn't even have money to go to the gym and train. So I had to put that dream on the back burner. And then when I made money, I wanted to resume, start chasing it, start training more. And then from 2018 up until a few months ago, I've been traveling the world and training with various martial arts masters. And I'm going to compete soon, but that's also like something I'll do part-time, because I have started a few new businesses right now, which are based on the service model, which I know the most. I've dabbled with physical products as well, but I like services more for the reasons I mentioned before. So right now I have a talent and model management agency in Miami that's called Badass Talent, and a service business in Greece is called Prosa Media, which helps established businesses grow the revenue to multiple millions of dollars a year. And apart from those, I have a few other ventures that I'm gonna launch in a few months, like a clothing brand and a couple other things.
That's amazing. No, that's wonderful. And I love what you, one of the things that you said here is how to blaze your own path by defining society's expectations and building the life of your dreams at a young age. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that message?
Yes. So what you are told from a very young age is the classic lifestyle of getting good grades in school, then going to college and then getting a degree, getting a job, and then working your ass off for 30 years and then retiring. And that's the common path that everybody recommends to everybody, and all parents try to force down their children's throats without any consideration about what the children want or what their talents might be. So I believe that young people should question that path and try to see if there is another way or another path that could be more fruitful in the short term and in the long term. So, for example, entrepreneurship, although it's something that's not for everybody, it is something that is also not recommended to anyone. School doesn't tell you that you could be an entrepreneur. Your parents don't tell you you could be an entrepreneur. Media don't tell you that you could run a profitable business. And especially nowadays with the rise of the internet, it's become easier than ever to start your own business from your laptop. And I just don't understand why nobody tells you that, and you have to discover it on your own, either by random coincidence like it happened with me, or by, I don't know, paying somebody to teach you about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one thing that looking back when I went to school is like, I think that part of our school system, and I'm not bashing them at the end of the day. I mean, you know, it's a path, right? You know, people can take that path. I feel like they teach you on how to be a good employee, right? And a lot of times is the teachings you get from school is just be a good employee and kind of keep working through that to come out and run as a good employee for another company. And like you said, yeah, the entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Yet, you know, if you do take that path, the one thing that people should know, I think, and I want to get your input on that, is that it's not an easy path, right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of ups and downs, and you got to be able to have a very big, you know, mindset to be able to take on that, right? In terms of, you know, being an entrepreneur, right? There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of, you know, this is a roller coaster. It's a constant roller coaster. So I guess I want to get your opinion about that journey of an entrepreneur in terms of how do you deal with all of those up and downs and never give up and continue to push forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. There are many ways you deal with it, but one of the most basic things you could be thinking of if you embark on that journey is that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Because if somebody else has done it, and I'm not talking about one person or 10 people, I'm talking about hundreds of people who've taken that path and become successful, despite the odds, despite the circumstances, and regardless of their starting point, they managed to make it. So you have to know that it's possible for you as well. Like, for example, with is it the 4-minute mile?
4-minute mile, yeah.
Yep. Nobody could break that record until one person did it, and then everybody could do it like if it were nothing. So entrepreneurship is the same thing. You have to find somebody who's done what you want to do and walk in their footsteps. And I don't mean follow their exact path, but take inspiration from them. And the least thing you could get from them is know that whatever they've done, you can do as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is to have an end goal in mind and realize that the reward that's going to be waiting for you at the end of the road is going to be better than whatever else you've than the previous option you had available for you. So, for example, let's say somebody is a student in university, you have to spend 5 years there, maybe other 5 in postgraduate studies, then 5 years to build your resume, and 5 more to rise to an executive position in a company. So after 20 years, you're 40 years old and you make $100,000 a year, which is a very respectable, good income. But then you could also know that there is a 19-year-old or a 22-year-old that's beating you, and only after a year has managed to reach the same level of financial firepower. So there is a shortcut right there that exists, and at the very least, you should examine if you could take advantage of it. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to work for it or it's going to be easy, but it means that the reward at the end of your journey is probably going to be worth your time more. If you can do the same thing in 2 years, why take 20 years to do it, you know? And if all you're looking for is to become financially free and make a good income, and you don't care about what you're studying, which is the way it works for most people. They don't go to university because it's their dream major. They go because it's the only way they know they have a chance for a better future.
Yeah.
So if that's the only way you're going, then maybe think about the other option and examine it too, and know that it's faster.
No, I definitely love that. That's actually a really good point. And there's definitely many different shortcuts, and being able to find those and just continue to push through with those, it's amazing. If people wanted to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
So they can connect with me on Instagram at Damian Prosa, or on Twitter, same username, or on YouTube, same username.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And I have a couple more questions before I let you go. The one question I have for you is, if you were to look back in your life, what is one of the major lessons that you've taken from your journey?
Like a negative or positive lesson, like
But
a
positive.
mistake I made. Positive.
Yeah.
Positive lesson. So one of the main things I've realized is that you have to, like we said before, there are going to be a lot of thoughts in your mind that are going to be self-sabotaging thoughts that are going to be discouraging you and trying to slow you down. And the same thing is going to come undoubtedly from outside sources. So you have to, I believe, keep your plans and your dreams and your aspirations for yourself and not announce them to the world. Because partly when you do that, when you make your plans public, apart from the definite discouragement you're going to get from people who don't believe in their own dreams, so let alone how can they believe in yours, another thing that happens is that you get a fake sense of achievement, like you're bragging about the thing you're going to do even though you haven't done it yet. So you're basically talking stuff you haven't done yet, and you feel good at the time that you're talking about it, but you haven't done it. So how are you getting that reward of feeling good about it if you haven't yet accomplished it? And that somehow stops you dead on your tracks from actually achieving it. And I found myself making that blender several times, talking about things I'm going to do, and then just feeling well in the moment and then forgetting about it. And all the other times, I just kept it a secret and didn't share it with anyone. It just worked like a charm. And when I actually shared it with them, not only they could not doubt me, but they could also not stop me because it had already happened.
Yeah, it's already proven. And you know what? I never seen it that way. And actually, that makes perfect sense. Like the first part of that is that instead of sharing that, just keeping that to you, because I can already see how people can definitely try to put you down or start putting things into your head where like they might be saying you're crazy or this is not going to work. And then the idea that you originally had now became more of that, a doubt in your own mind because you share that. So I had never seen it from that perspective, but it's very true. Yeah. Yeah. And then the last thing I have for you is if for the people that are listening to us and watching us, clearly you've overcome a lot of stuff in your life and coming from, from being poor to being a millionaire now at an early age. What would be one advice on top of everything you've given us already that you can tell our listeners if they're going through a challenge now? What would be one advice that they can take to overcome that challenge?
Mm-hmm. I believe that no matter what situation you're in and no matter how difficult it is, you have to start changing the things that you have absolute control over your life. And I have a trifecta of things that I believe that if you focus on, they tremendously improve your life and totally change direction. And that trifecta is your physicality, training your body every single day, your mind, which you train by reading books, and last but not least, martial arts, because by training and knowing how to fight, you develop a different kind of confidence that's hard to get by, that's hard to find in our new society where everything is easy and you don't have to fight for it, you don't have to struggle, and you basically get everything easily handed to you on a silver platter. You have unlimited access to entertainment, unlimited access to food, unlimited access to whatever you can imagine at the click of a button, and you don't go through any kind of struggle that's going to fortify your mind and body. And martial arts gives you that.
I love that. Definitely love that. So physicality, body, brain, martial arts, all of that. That's really, really good. So, Damon, anything else before I let you go that you would like to share with our listeners?
No, Cesar, that would be all. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much for being here. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you check us out on any platform that you can hear your favorite podcast. Please make sure you like, comment, and share. Come in here and comment into this particular podcast. And definitely looking forward to seeing you at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good day. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.